My name is Natasha and I am 40.
Hi, I'm Katie. I am 42.
I'm Carrie. I'm 46 years old.
I'm Lizzie. I'm 38.
Jane Regan King, 55 years old.
Welcome back to Interwoven's fourth season, featuring conversations centered on life's essentials and on celebrating and supporting women in middle life. We are thrilled this season to exchange support with Melnick and Melnick SC. Melnick and Melnick SC is a law firm of women dedicated to supporting small business owners. They manage legal issues with collaborative solutions, cost-effective strategies, and up-to-date communications. Melnick and Melnick SC values women and entrepreneurs so much that in 2017, they started She Stands Tall, a community of women who learn from and inspire each other. Visit melnickmelnick.com and shestandstallmke.com for more information and to learn about future events. This week's discussion features Lisa and Elizabeth chatting about entrepreneurship, parenthood, and parallels between the two, and also collaboration over competition, business values, boundaries, balance, evolving friendships, and the importance of grace. A huge thank you to this season's featured musician, Gina Barrington. Remember to hit subscribe so you can be the first to know about new episodes, and visit our website to join the Interwoven community, receive newsletters and event information, access all of our resources, and to connect with us on social. Find us at interwoven.com. That's interwovxn.com.
Hi, Elizabeth.
Hi, Lisa. What's going on, girl?
I'm Lisa. I run a small business. It is called The Middle Six. It is a sales consulting agency. And I literally would not be sitting here saying that out loud if it weren't for my friend Elizabeth, who I'm talking to today, who sat me down over lunch and basically shook me and said, I want you to consult for me. I want to pay you for it. Will you please let me know what that looks like after I was unemployed 4 months postpartum of a baby. And so she gave me the confidence to start my own business. Our journey doesn't start there. It doesn't stop there. I'll let Elizabeth tell you about herself as well.
So I'm Elizabeth Reese, and I am founder of Chasing Paper, which started as just a removable wallpaper business 10 years ago in New York City. Since then, we've moved the business back to Milwaukee, which is my hometown, which is where I met Lisa. And we've moved beyond peel and stick wallpaper to do traditional and type 2 floor decals and large format art, and have lots of new things in the works for this year and next, and just kind of continue to grow. But I think kind of what you said too about kind of just like how it came to be and that early sense of like, you can do it. I also had a woman early in my journey who was like, do this thing, just that like early vote of confidence that you could do it. And the thing that's kind of rambling around in your head could be like a legitimate business. Someone thinks that you can do it. I mean, those little votes of confidence are so big.
Yeah. The first time I met you, I don't know if you remember this, but you were speaking at a women's networking event.
Yes.
You were telling your story of how you came to be. Every single woman in that room was fangirling over you so hard. First of all, your brand is incredible. Your PR is incredible. So we all thought you were a celebrity, which you are. But I personally knew I had to be friends with you because of how much swearing you did during your presentation. I was like, I have to be friends with
I
her.
spoke at an event on Saturday. Someone came up to me afterwards and she was like, you're my kind of person, that you were up there in front of people and swearing. And I like hadn't even noticed that I had said a swear. I was like, I did? Oh, whoops. It's just who I am. I can't censor myself, so.
No, but that's like one of the things about you that is just so, I guess, like healthy for me to be friends with you is because of how authentic and unapologetic you are. I know a lot of people.
You do.
I like a lot of people. I'm like a little puppy. Like I like all the people. But I feel like you're probably the one I should be emulating the most because you just keep it real. You kick ass at being a mom. You just do you.
I appreciate that, but I think you and I are similar in the personality type, that we both are like doers. We want to get in there. We want to get our hands dirty. And, kind of like solve the problem, figure things out. So I think I do have like a level of that maybe in like more of like my personal life, but I think in my business, and I know you are similar to me in this way, is that I just know that I'm going to get things done and go for it. And so I don't have like a lot of time for things that don't either serve me or that I don't feel like is kind of pushing me forward. Something as I was thinking about for this conversation today, and something that has been really top of mind for me, especially being in kind of the wall covering space, and especially you being in like a service-based industry, especially with like female entrepreneurship and female business owners. I know that that's not like the only thing you service, and just about like the competition aspect of things and how you view competition. I think in New York for so many years, I was so conditioned to sort of like look at what everyone else was doing and making sure my business was in line. And in Milwaukee, I feel like people hold things very close to their chest. A lot of women don't want to talk numbers. They don't want to talk how they did something or how they solved a problem. They don't want to necessarily talk about the problem. And I think that that's where I've cultivated more of that realness, is because I was so used to it in New York. There was just more of an openness and more sharing of information. And as being back in the Midwest now, people hold things a lot tighter to the vest. And I think that that creates a really difficult environment to sort of grow and learn from each other. So I'm curious kind of what you think about that, especially being in your first few years of business, have like combated that or embraced it, or who knows?
So that's an interesting conversation. So you say New York versus Milwaukee, but I see that competition challenge for women generationally. Like all the women's networking groups I've been in, I think it's always been evident to me. I've worked in construction, so I didn't necessarily have a lot of female coworkers. Right. Just watching the competitiveness between women, that makes me sick. I hate it. But I think the generation above ours probably had to fight and scrap and didn't have the support that we have. I think our age group is very comfortable supporting each other. And I think the women one generation above us had to kind of fight against each other for that very small spot that they were allowing women into leadership.
But I think like in your particular area in sales too, I mean, you've got to get down to the brass tacks. You've got to understand like how much money are you making now? How much do you want to be making? What's the margin and all of that kind of stuff? I mean, do you find that people are pretty open with you about that? Or
no.
Yes. And that's what I feel here. I feel like I can call my friends in New York and be like, how was your first quarter? And we can just kind of go back and forth. There's no real hesitation. And with here, I really sense that hesitation to really talk brass tacks, which I think sometimes is the only meaningful way to move conversation forward, or to really understand what the actual climate is or what you're talking about when it's super general. And I think that that's where my realness or whatever, sometimes I think it can come across a little bit like blunt to people, because we're not going to have those kind of conversations where we're actually going to kind of be open and transparent. What are we really talking about?
Yeah. So then they're surprised when you say it out loud.
Sure.
Like I totally get what you're saying with that. So I accidentally mentored a lot of women in their negotiation at work. The first thing is like, what are you making now? And they're like, oh my God, I can't tell you what I'm making. And I'm like, I don't care what you're making. Tell me what you're making so I can help you negotiate. Right. I know my family never talked about it.
And similarly, I think in our business, I think in e-commerce, so much has changed over the last 18 months, 2 years, kind of coming out of COVID and all of the sort of digital landscape changing and digital marketing changing. We always kind of laugh, but it's like, every like 6 months, all these ad agencies and marketing agencies are like, okay, well now it's not ROAS, it's MER, and like continue to tweak the KPI so that they continue to look good. So you continue to hire and work for people. I think it's just kind of like a moving target. And I think that that's why when business owners aren't talking to each other, it can be a really slippery slope, because you're like, well, they're the experts. And you've got to make sure that we're kind of, you're always kind of thinking like apples to apples, and like, what's the thing that you're going to kind of keep your eye on, not just for a quarter or for 6 months, but year over year, so that you can actually see if things are moving in the right direction. Just kind of like the collaboration over competition and that kind of thing has been sort of on my mind recently, I think.
Yeah. Do you think that's a personality trait?
I think it is, but I think it's also, again, really interesting. I hosted an event on Saturday with a designer in from Portland and then a designer here in Milwaukee. And, it was like, and it ended up being like, we sold out the event and it was like 50 women and it was so great. And everyone was just talking after about just everyone feels better. Like lighter, more excited, more motivating after going to something where people are like sharing ideas. It's like you can go into like a big conference room and have people sort of talk in cliches, like follow your dreams, do the right thing. And it's like you leave kind of feeling maybe the same way that you walked in. But I think that there's something really to it when you can get people together talking about real experiences and, like I was saying, sort of more of those like brass tacks things that I think I always come away from those talks feeling a lot more excited and curious and motivated. Milwaukee is a market that I think is still such like an anomaly to me. I'm like still trying to figure it out. I feel like it's such an interesting place to sort of grow, and I don't know. I just feel like it has some idiosyncrasies, and I grew up here, so I feel like I should have figured it out by now.
But this hits hard for me right now, what you're saying about the event you threw on Saturday. I've been really busy at work. I'm trying not to say busy anymore. I'm trying to say productive. I've been really productive at work lately. It's probably been 6 or 8 months since I was at a networking event. Yeah. And so like this week was Women's Entrepreneurship Week. And I was asked to speak at one of the events. And I'm like, yeah, sure. And then the whole week is filled with like all these potentially great opportunities for me to learn and grow. I missed you speaking because I allowed my schedule to not allow any space for that. And somebody posted on LinkedIn something that just hit me really hard. They said, women, by you not going to networking events, you're not empowering others to learn from you and grow, and you're doing a disservice to everyone. We're both crazy people. We're very good at taking care of ourselves and doing fun things for ourselves, and we're running successful businesses. And then we also have those 2 kids apiece. That is another full-time job. So I've been thinking a lot about what my company values will be. And like the only word that I can think of that is like vital is grace. The one thing I can't do is be hard on myself. I can't.
Totally. I mean, I actually just canceled a work trip at the end of this week because I just felt like, is the juice worth the squeeze kind of a thing? It's like, do I want to be out? Do I want to be meeting people? Do I want to be networking? Of course, because that's part of business. But I also have to recognize that like I have a ton on my plate right now. And I also have to just like take care of myself. And I have 2 kids to take care of. And I have a husband who I want to be in balance and in sync with, because that matters for both of our work. If things are off balance, like it affects him and his job, which there's a trickle down to our girls. And I mean, the trickle down is so real. What's going to kind of maybe fall to the wayside or not be picked back up. I mean, I'm with you. I got a question at the panel that I did for Women's Entrepreneur Week that was like, how do you like find the balance between things? And I was like, I think right now it's like some weeks I'm a great businesswoman and a shitty mom, and some weeks I'm a great mom and a shitty business owner. And like, that's okay. Like, it's so rare that I'm doing both well in the same week or in the same month. A big difference sort of like between you and I, and this is like what I am in awe of you about, or just women who generally start businesses after they've had kids, is that I had the ability to have my business for so many years where it was my sole focus. It was all I did. I could work 80 hours a week on chasing paper because I could, you know what I mean? Like those weren't probably like the healthiest mental weeks for me, but like I could go out, I could go straight from work to an event 4 nights a week. I didn't answer to anyone. No one needed me. And, I could travel on someone asked me to speak at something in Mexico City. I was on the next flight. It was just a very different time for me where I could just say yes to everything. In those first years, you feel like it's so important for you to say yes to everything. So, I mean, I really so impressed by your ability to say yes to so much, but then also still be able to say no to so much, because that's such a big part of having kids and running a business is the ability to say no.
Okay, so it's this concept where there's 4 burners on a stove. How many of those 4 burners can you like cook on well?
Right.
Not all 4, right? You can have one. So the 4 burners in like your life are your career, your family, your friends, and your health. I have felt for the past 6 months that my friend burner is off. My health burner, off. I'm like just trying to be the best mom I can be, which is a B-, and that's great. A decent business owner. I mean, hiring people was really scary, knowing that I'm responsible for other people's mouths to feed too. So I feel like the stress has really And I don't get stressed out. I'm not, you know me, I'm like
A doer.
yes, I live and die by the secret, power of positive thinking. What you put out is what you'll get, law of attraction. I feel like I've been a really shitty friend, and that's the part that gives me a lot of guilt. But then being friends with you and a few select others, you're one of the friends that I never feel like you've never made me feel guilty.
Yeah.
You've never made me feel like I've let you down. You've always just given me grace. And so now I feel like when I think about friendships with other women, I genuinely just can't be in anything that has too high of expectations.
Yeah. I feel like at certain times in your life, you sort of like shed some friends and you like other friends, like, you know, other friendships like deepen. Some of my best girlfriends in my New York years are now people that, you know, like I see a couple times a year, but they're not, you know, my kind of day-to-day, everyday friends. Sometimes I feel like you're those friends who sort of show up for you in these like life moments when you don't have a ton of time. I mean, I barely have time for myself, let alone other people. And getting back on track for me is like the most important thing. Before my friends comes my mental health. Like you were saying too, your physical health. My physical health burner had been off for like 5 years when I was like having babies and the pandemic and whatever. And at the start of this year, I decided to put health back on the front burner. But it's also meant that like I've had to turn other things off. I have to make time for things, and you can't be everything to everyone.
And we will be right back with this interwoven discussion. Hey, it's Teresa. Today's episode highlights Joy Ice Cream Social, a Milwaukee-based, woman-owned business opening this summer, June of 2023, and located at 8334 West North Avenue in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. In addition to ice cream and sweets, this new ice cream shop serves charcuterie boxes, wine and beer, and cold brew and floats. Make sure to put this on your summer calendar. Find them on Instagram or at their website, joyicecreamsocial.com. Interested in hearing your business advertised on the Interwoven podcast? Contact us at hello@interwoven.com. That's INTERWOVXN.com.
That gets me back to that word. That's like my word, the grace thing. Like I can't, and not just friends, like the family members of mine who don't give me that space to treat myself. Like, okay, Elizabeth, when's the last time you did something like straight up alone for yourself?
I mean, I try to like build it in now. So like if I'm traveling for work, I'll go like a day early to New York to give myself the evening. Like I won't book anything. I won't see anyone. I won't even see my friends. Like I won't even tell people I'm in town. I'll like take a walk. So I try to like build it into things that I'm already doing, you know, or like if I'm picking up my daughter at school, I'll try to like walk there. And like, instead of multitasking as I'm walking on my phone, I like force myself to listen to a podcast or listen to music. I'm sure you haven't done anything for yourself in a long time either.
I mean, I'm like really impressed. Like, are you holding yourself accountable? Did you ask your husband to hold yourself accountable to doing that? Like, I think that's really where I dropped the ball, or I experience guilt.
We need to also recognize that I have the privilege and help and support of a husband. I mean, you're raising 2 kids on your own. That is inherently different. I mean, you're mom and dad. I can go out without having to get a babysitter. I mean, nights we have to get babysitters. I mean, it's a whole thing. You got to have your network, and you got to have like your A team and your B team. And that's a whole nother thing that's like swirling in your world that, I mean, or I had like less of that pressure to figure that out. And, you know, even yesterday on Mother's Day, it was like, I felt like a lot of like celebrities and influencers, instead of just being like, Happy Mother's Day, were like, I want to like talk about my night nurse and my nanny and all of this like support staff, you know, around these women, because I feel like so many times we look at other women and they're like, they just like do it all. And like the fact is of the matter is like no one's doing it all or without the huge help of other people support, whether it's family, whether it's, you know, a night nurse or a nanny or even in business. You know, it's like Instagram and social media make it seem like everyone is doing everything. You know, that's just not the case. Things are never as they appear.
Okay, so let's talk about that single mom journey situation here. So you're absolutely right. All of us have these like great networks of people to help. So I got old, wanted kids, made 2 kids myself. I had ordered sperm online, threw myself a raging sperm party at a place called Balzac. Everyone was there. It was published in the paper. It was amazing. If you didn't have a jizz fizz to drink that night, you just weren't doing it right. So flash forward to Friday. So I'm in Detroit. One of my clients is out there. I dropped my kids off at daycare Thursday morning. I then headed to Women Entrepreneur Week to speak at an event. Then I went straight from there to the airport, straight from the airport to my friend's boutique where my client was throwing a pop-up, spent the night at my friend's house. Then my client and I went and did client meetings all day long, hopped on a plane. My plane was to land in Milwaukee at 5:30.
On Friday.
And I was to pick my children up from daycare. I had one of those moments where I didn't have anybody. Yeah, it was a tough one. As you know, I'm on some medication that maybe makes me a little bit more sensitive than normal. And then last week, a friend of mine, her 2.5-year-old son died. He choked on his lunch. I had a really hard week processing that. Like the mom tribe, just the mom village, like there's nothing I can do, say to help like absorb any of that pain. And the medication that I was on just like, I could not get over this. Like I was crying all week long at the drop of a hat. I'm with my clients in Detroit. I start telling them the story. I'm bawling. We're all bawling. We're bawling. It's unimaginable, a nightmare. And I'm on this plane and the damn plane is delayed. I was not going to be able to make it to daycare in time to pick up my kids. So I start making calls and I probably called 20 people and I'm bawling on the plane. I'm looking at this live feed of the funeral. I'm feeling guilty because I'm reaching out to all these people, like I just needed another mom to go pick up my kids because I've got the 1-year-old who still needs a car seat and I'd feel guilty. Elizabeth, I always have my shit together. I always have a network. I always have babysitters lined up. This was like the first time where I felt guilty that I became a single mom. My parents have always been a little bit like conservative about the situation. Right. They were my first call and they were out in the deep suburbs on their way to dinner. So they were like, oh, if you can't find anybody else. And they're always like my benchmark for feeling guilty. And I never want them to think that I made this decision and can't handle it myself. But like I was fucked. I was totally fucked. But anyways, it was fine. I found a babysitter of mine sent her sister to my house to grab the stroller. And this girl took the hop to get my kids and like true superhero stranger. I'm like sitting here feeling like I'm a bad mom and this guilt. And then I'm crying because like at the end of the day, like if this is the worst of my problems and my kids are picked up late from daycare, the mom guilt, the business guilt, like it's a lot of pressure.
It's so easy to look at your life and how you carry yourself. I mean, you are such like an internally positive, optimistic, gonna get it done, gonna get it, whatever. And I think showing that vulnerable side, I mean, that is the reality of business ownership, entrepreneurship, motherhood, even just like friendships. We don't hear those stories enough. There's never like a woman on the cover of like Forbes or Inc. or whatever. That's just like, yeah, like telling that story. Those are the moments that like make you as a mom, as a woman, and, where you have to rely on other people. You have to like outsource, you have to figure things out. All we hear is like the success stories or the unicorn stories or the things that are so beyond relatable. And I did Chasing Paper for so many years by myself. And everyone thought that I was running this like huge company because we were like being placed in big articles and people were seeing our brand everywhere and we were on like TV show. It was like we had a crazy amount of like press happening, but it was just me. And like I was doing everything. I was working such crazy hours, did not have enough confidence in myself to hire someone, and felt that like alone, that like sick alone feeling so many times where I'd be like, I have to be 2 places at once and I can't be 2 places at once. Something's going to have to get fucked up. But then you do have those clarifying moments where you're like, but you got through it. And I mean, I'm sure for you, you just like, hugged your babies a little closer that night because it's like, if all the other stuff falls apart, you have those certain things. And obviously with my girls now, they're like my entire world. They're like the best thing I've ever done. With Chasing Paper, I also feel like if it went away tomorrow, I'm like, man, what a great run. I built a company for a decade. Yeah. What a great thing. I got to like travel the world. I got to like meet a million cool people. Even just that in and of itself is such a great thing, and no one can take that away from you.
Okay, so you remember when you did that panel on motherhood, which I
Yes.
think you need to bring back.
Yeah.
That was so freaking cool. But one of the things you were so intentional about was saying that like you were mothering a business. I think being an entrepreneur and being a mother are literally the
It's
same
so
thing.
similar. I agree.
Because you can't give up. There was no fuck it, I quit.
Yep.
If you're in corporate America or you're not a parent, you can fuck it, I quit.
Yeah.
Which you just cannot do when you're running a business or if you're being a parent.
Yeah. Or I mean, I think you can do it if you're like a business owner, but the stakes are so much higher. Like you said, I mean, I just take hiring so seriously. I just never want to be someone who hires people flippantly, maybe almost too intentional, because I just would never want to be in a position where I'm like, well, I hired you, now I have to fire you.
I think that no one should ever be comfortable firing somebody. If you're comfortable firing somebody, then you're a psychopath. You're the one that I should be watching for your intentionality. Even when we started working together, something that was so powerful is your integrity for your brand. You've never been desperate.
But I mean, the other side of that coin is that I see other brands building faster than we are by doing that, by like cutting those corners or like doing the thing that like brings you growth a little faster. And like slow growth is not sexy. It took us 5 years to get to $1 million in revenue. And I was living in New York City. I mean, people would be like, oh, you're like a $10 million company, right? Like, I mean, that was like the baseline. Like if you weren't making like $10 million, it's like your company wasn't even worth talking about. I always felt really like embarrassed by that. Like I never wanted to tell people that fact. I mean, now I'm like just in such a better place with it where I'm like, I've also always run like a profitable company, and that matters to me. I just have so many friends too who've been in like the having babies part of and they're just like, I just don't take care of myself anymore. And you have to like really decide to reprioritize certain things, but then also recognize that other things are going to have to be turned down and are going to have to be let simmer. And you've got to be okay with that, this idea about like scarcity and abundance, and like how you just need to like not come from a place of scarcity. You have to feel like there's enough for everyone and that there's enough time and that you have enough energy to like give your kids or your business or whatever. And I think on days that I'm like, I mean, I actually do this. I really try to like be much more mindful about my schedule and my calendar. And like sometimes I'll just like black out afternoons of my calendar, not just so that I can like get caught up and whatever, but also to make sure that I can like go on a walk, see the sunshine, or like take a call while I'm out on a walk and like get some fresh air, move my body. There's just really, really something to that of building it in. And I also think just letting other things go. Like, I mean, I just used to be such a psycho about getting everything off my to-do list before the weekend. And now I'm just like, that's never going to happen. I'm always going to have to pick back up on Monday, and I've got to let go of that. And my next thing that I want to do is just more delegation. I think to your point, you are more of a risk taker to me. And I was recently talking with a friend who had just made a hire, like a really smart hire in my opinion. And I was like, oh gosh, I need to like hire. And she was like, well, do it. Like get a job up, get something out there, like hire someone. And I go back into that, what if something changes or what if something goes away or whatever, versus being like, we're going to build the team and things are going to happen and come. And again, doing it in a way that's smart. It's like what happened with COVID. I'm in the home industry. 2020 was a banner year. While so many of my friends, restaurants I love, businesses I love went under. I was watching people drop like flies. I mean, like it was for certain categories, the hardest year, in the last 100 years in business. My business was thriving. And I will be the first person to say this. I had such ego coming out of 2020. I was like, oh my gosh, we've done this. We could not keep up with the demand. But then in June of 2021, all the privacy stuff happened with Apple, and all of our marketing essentially went away overnight. We are an e-commerce business. We were relying very heavily on Meta. So Facebook, Instagram, those channels. In 2020, for every dollar we spent with Meta, we would make $10. I mean, that is not a normal ROI, but even if you're making 3x, 4x, it's still amazing. So I assumed even if it came down, it wouldn't come down that far. Well, it did. I mean, the bottom fell out in June, like all the privacy, you couldn't like follow people around the internet like you used to. All the privacy stuff totally changed everything. And like overnight things changed, whether that was like a COVID thing or just whatever. It's like to think that your business is ever like immune to anything is just like bananas. I mean, it's the same with kids. I mean, to me, I think that's the biggest this conversation is exactly that value that you've been thinking about and that has been coming around. Because I think for me too, giving it to myself, but also for me in my life right now, I think it's giving it to other people as well.
I 1,000% agree. In my head, what is essential for summer would be a swimming suit that you feel really good in.
Love that too.
So there's both ends of the spectrum.
I love it. But we'll talk soon, probably tomorrow.
Let's just pretend we're podcasting every time.
Yes, let's do it.
Yeah, that was
All
lovely.
right, take care.
Thanks for joining us today. We invite you to give us a star review and to hit subscribe for a new empowering conversation each week. Visit our website where you'll find our newsletter, event dates, and other amazing resources. Visit interwoven.com, that's interwovxn.com, to sign up today. This show's copyright is summer of 2023. We want to thank Melnick and Melnick for their support this season. Our Interwoven producers are Teresa Kopak, Rebecca Jankowski, and Jen Gilmore. All original music was created and performed by Gina Barrington.